Hi, this is Steve for the Mark 47520 channel. Today we're going to do lesson number 9, which is under table routing on your Shopsmith. And for this particular lesson, you need to have the Mark 7 with the Power Pro. And that is because we're going to be using this type of cutter where you can have a profile that you want to use up at this top part, or if you want to use just this part here, you would flip it over. So you have to have the reversible motor, which the Mark 7 has. So that's why you need to have the Mark 7 for this particular lesson. So first of all, we're going to set this up into the under table routing mode. I've done most of that already. As you saw in the written instructions, if you have the lift assist, you need to remove that first with it in vertical drill press position. In other words, this machine would have been up this way for vertical drill press position, and you would have had to remove that gas cylinder from your machine in order to set this up in under table routing mode, because you can't have that gas cylinder attached there. And you don't want to do it what's in horizontal, because that'll snap out and it can hurt you. So I'm assuming that you've already done that if you have the lift assist. If you don't, I don't have the lift assist, so I don't have to worry about it. I've already turned the table around, taken it up out of the carriage and turned it around, put it back down in the carriage. I've already put in the, as you can see here, the insert for the shaping mode. I've already put in my spindle with my cutter on it. And we're going to set this up into vertical position now. And when we're done, we're gonna use a board like this, and we're gonna use the top part of the profile for one edge, and then we'll use the underside of the profile for the other edge. And as you can see here, we're not doing it down the entire length of the edge. You need to have a fence to do that. And we're just using the 2 pins because that's all that comes with the Mark 7 when you get it. So I want to show you how you can do shaping with just the pins on this particular lesson. So we'll put this cutter aside. And this is my fresh piece of stock that we're going to use. And I'm just going to set this underneath here on the bench tubes for now. It'll be out of the way. And to raise this up into vertical position, I want to make sure that everything's locked down. Motor's locked. My trunnion is locked. I've got, actually the trunnion is back over here since we flipped it around. I've already got my spindle right where I want it to be, and I've got that locked on the quill. Machine is firmly on, let's double check here. Make sure machine is firmly on the floor. It is. It's firmly on the floor. Carriage is locked. And so we've got everything locked. We've got nothing on our auxiliary spindle. So we're ready to raise that up into vertical position. We want to loosen the knob down here. So now I'm ready. I can raise this up. And it's pretty easy. If one person can do this without the lift assist, you got plenty of leverage to do that. We're just going to lift it straight up. Takes not very much effort at all. And now I'm going to lock the lock knob here while I rock that a little bit. All right, there we are. Okay, so as you notice, we've got the cutter set so that the bottom part of the curve here on the 1/2 inch round over is right flush with the table. So we will do this in 2 passes. We will do a first pass here, and then I've already set the quill for 1/8 inch for depth of cut. So after we do that first pass, then we will advance the quill 1/8 of an inch and do our final pass. And the technique that we want to use when we do this is we want to start with this pin. We're going to rotate this into the stock until it touches the rub collar. Then we will feed the stock past. When we get to this end over here, then we will rest it against this pin and rotate the stock away from the rub collar. And that's how you do it safely to do this. But before we start, we've got to add a couple more things. We've got to put our upper guard on, which that's what we're going to do now. And to do that, we've got our T-nut here with the post. That T-nut just slides in the back slot here. We'll position approximately right by this hole here, close to it. We're going to adjust it, final position, in a minute here. Now I'll put the rest of the guard on. Now what we want when we have this guard on there placed correctly is we want to have the entire clear shield over both pins. So right now I'm retracting the brush so it's out of the way so I can see that through the shield when I put it on there. I'm going to put this on the post. Now, as you can see right here, I want to have both pins inside of this shield. So now I know I've got it positioned, and I will adjust as I need to. I can either slide it left or right on the T-nut. When I get that there, I will turn that post in position. Now for my height, I want this to be about 1/8 of an inch above my stock. So right there, it's touching the stock. That's about 1/8 of an inch above. It can freely slide. Last thing, I want to put my brush down till it just touches the table. All that brush does is help contain the dust so it doesn't fly out to the side there and I get more dust collection, more effective dust collection. So now I've got that brush down, just touching the top of the table there. So I want to make sure that my stock, it can go against that pin, it can go out against that pin, it can go wherever I need it to go. Next, I want to draw a line about 3 to 3.5 inches in from each end. What that's going to do, that will tell me where to start on the pin and where to stop on this pin so that I don't go too far and go past the end. I don't want these ends to go all the way past and then fall into the cutter, because then that could rip that out of our hands, and we don't want that to happen. Okay, so let's draw our pencil line. And I'm going to set this for about 3 1/4 inches. Line there and here. Now I'll run it all the way across the stock. Okay, so when we start, I know to line up this line with that pin, and that's where I will position it to start. Then I can rotate it in. And then when I get to the distant end, when the line gets here, I'll know to rotate it away from the stock. All right. So the only other thing we need to do before we start here is we've already done our 7-step safety check. We need to plug it in. We're going to need to turn it on. And of course, we're going to need to get our hearing protection. I've got on my high protection, and I'm going to get my push block also to assist in this. So here's the push block. I want it to orient it so that it's leaning away from the guard when I do that. And now I'm going to put on my hearing protection. My assistant is going to plug that in for me with the extension cable that's in her hand. That goes in the other socket. And now I'm going to put on my safety glasses. And my hearing protection. Now we'll turn on the power. And I'm going to take these glasses off here. And now I need to connect up my dust collection. I'll put that hose on now. And I like to just run it straight over the top here. Right in there. All right. Our machine's turned on. I'm going to set that. And of course, my set that for shaping for softwood. Now, you've got a number of choices here on diameter: 1/8 to 3/4, 3/4 to 1/2, and 1.5 to 3. So let's measure what kind of size we're going to cut here. And that other cutter that I was using to demonstrate with, let's see where I put that. I'll just get another one. I'll just get another cutter so we can measure and see what we're doing. So this cutter here, the size that it's going to cut is going to be, I measure right here. That's about 1/2 inch. So we can select the smallest one there, the 1/8 to 3/4. And that sets it at 10,000. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the microphone here so you don't have to hear the loud noise of the motor. And then I'll turn that back on after we're finished doing the cut. So I'll turn on my dust collection. Now I'm going to mute this. Back on now. So here we've done our first pass. See right here. And now I'm going to advance that here with my quill. I'll unlock it. Advance that up till it stops. and that advances up 1/8 of an inch. And I'll do my final cut. And we'll do this again. And I'm going to mute this again. Okay, so we've done our first cut. You can see here the results. Now our next cut, we're going to use the other profile. And to do that, we're going to need to turn the cutter upside down. So to do that, I need to advance the quill all the way up. But before I do that, I'm going to turn off the power to my machine. So I'm actually going to flip that switch on the Power Pro headstock, the red one down, so that it completely powers off. I'm going to wait till that's done. So the screen's gone blank. Now I'm going to go ahead and I want to advance this all the way up. So I will loosen my quill there. Now you'll probably have to reposition this handle down here to do that. Now I have the optional 10-step one, but if you have the other type that came with it, you can change the position on that to advance it. So just keep the camera up here on the bit here. There we go. So I advance that all the way up. Lock my quill. Now we're going to use our 7/8 open end wrench and your arbor wrench that comes with your machine to do this. The 7/8 will fit right there. The smaller hole here will fit right on that nut. Now I'll take that off, take this nut off. And we're going to flip this bit over, this cutter over. Flip it right over. So we'll use this part of the profile for the other edge. There's my rub collar. There's my tongue washer. And there's my nut. Now, since we flipped that bit over, we've got to reverse the direction of the motor in order to cut, because the cutting action is on this edge, so we're going to need it to spin in the opposite direction. So when we set up our motor this time, we've got to make sure and select reverse. So let's tighten this up. Okay. I can keep the camera here and stay here for a little bit. Actually, you can probably, if you go on the other side, you can see it just as well if you go over on the other side. So I'm lowering this down so that this bottom part of the curve here is right flush with the table for my first cut. And then we will advance it 1/8 inch just like we did on the other one. So bring that down to right, that's about flush there. So that will be my first cut. And then you don't need to show this on the camera because people know, have seen how this is done before. We're just going to set our depth stop for 1/8 of an inch down here. Okay, it's set for 1/8 of an inch. So then when it comes time to go for our second cut, we'll just advance that up to the stop and it'll go up where it needs to. I'll put that back down flush. And there we are there. And we'll readjust this again. All I really do now, this, I've adjusted it before, is just do it down until the bristles just start to touch the table. And I know I have it in right position. Yeah, that's perfect right there. All right. And we'll hook our hose up again. Okay, now this time I'd like to make sure you get camera good view on the selection I do on the motor this time. So you make sure people know how to do this in the reverse direction. You don't have to tilt it down. Okay. Okay, so I've got it on the shaper again. I've got softwood again. I have 1/8 to 3/4. But this time, you see right here where it says, this button that says reverse, I want to push that button, and now it asks me, do I want a reverse direction? I confirm it. And now you can see on the screen,
Outer shaper. Reverse.
It's got the word reverse right there above the 10,000 RPM. So if you don't have the word reverse above there, it hasn't done it. All right, so now we know we've got it selected correctly. And let's see. So we did this side last time. This time we're going to do this side, use our same lines as we did before. All right. So we're ready to do our first pass. Just going to double check everything again. Make sure everything's locked down. This is locked. The trunion's locked. Motor's locked. Yep. Everything's where it needs to be. All right. So we're ready to do this cut. Now we got to get our push block. Okay. So here's our push block right here. And I'm going to turn on the dust collection and I'm going to mute this. There's our first pass. Now, so you notice on this one that it's got a lip here. That's because the rub collar does not go all the way out to the edge where the bit is. So that's why we've got a lip there. Now, when we advance it 1/8 of an inch, we're going to get another lip down here. So we're going to go ahead and advance that now. And now we're ready to do his final cut. And I'll mute that now. So there we have it. And now you see on this cut, we've got a lip in the surface of the stock and a lip in the edge of the stock on this one. And we've got some nice smooth cuts. You can get some really beautiful cuts here using the shaper. Now I will mention one thing. When you get these shaper bits, they're not fully sharp. So if you want to really get the best cut, you need to sharpen those by hand. And I'll show you what I use when I want to do mine. I'm going to take off my hearing protection now. And I'll show you what I use when I want to sharpen mine. And when I get them, I always sharpen them by hand first. And you'll see a huge difference in your quality of cut. And I'll be right back here in a second. What I'm going over here to get is I've got a set of fine and coarse India stone, and I also have a set of Arkansas stones that I use. So this is something that's not in the written instructions for this, but I just want to show it to you so you know for future. And these particular stones need oil, and you just put the oil on there. And I normally start, when I'm going to do one of these, in fact, I'll get a marker here and show you right now the process I go through when I do this. Now this particular one is still in the shape it was when it came from Korob, who makes the cutters. And you can see here, this is the quality, but this can be a whole lot sharper. I can rub my finger over and not cut myself. I want to be able to, I don't want to cut myself, but I want to be able to have the capacity to cut myself. I want it to be that sharp. So the way I do that is I take my marker and I mark each of these edges, because that's what I want to remove with the block. And then I'll do it with this one. And then this one here. So when that marker has been removed, I know I've gotten it sharp. So I start here with the coarse India first, and I need to get some oil to do that. So this is Norton Sharpening Stone Oil. And I'm going to put that right along there. And what I normally do when I'm going to do this is I'm going to do about 10 strokes on each edge to start with. So I actually have to take the stone out of there in order to do this. So here it is here. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3.
You push down both ways.
So now, if you look on here, I've removed that much of the black marker, so I've got more strokes to go to get the rest of that. But before I move on, I will do the next edge, 10 strokes. And I got one more edge here to do, this one. And same thing else. You can see on this one, gotten that much of the edge, gotten that much. So I would continue this process, doing 10 strokes at a time on each one until I've removed all of the black marker on the full profile there on all 3 edges. When that's happened, then I move up to my next grit, which is the Fine India. And then when I move up to each one, I just do about 10 strokes at each grit. Then after that is the soft Arkansas. The last one is my hard Arkansas. And after that, these will be razor sharp so that you got to be careful when you handle them. And so that'll give you the difference in the edge if you're not getting as clean of edge as you want to get. So, but that's going to be the end of this lesson. And we've only got one more lesson left in the self-study course. And of course, that's going to be the jigs and fixtures. And that's really the one where we put everything together that you've learned. See you on the next one.